Okay, you're down to 1 stitch on the needle, and so you want to have your safety pin handy so you can slip it through that stitch, because the needle's going to fall out anyway. So you want to get that last stitch on the safety pin, and then safety pin it back into the yarn so that you don't lose that last stitch. Now you want to have a needle and thread ready. And you're going to whip stitch that last stitch back into the yarns someplace. It's not going to show, so it's not real precise as to where you want to stitch it to. But you want to whip stitch that to end off the bind. So I'm just going to whip stitch it here several times so that I know it's got a good hold. And now I'm going to knot it and take one more stitch and knot it again. There. So now I can remove the safety pin, and I've got that last stitch secured so that it won't unravel. And if it's a little clumpy, that's not a problem. It's not going to be seen anyway. So take your scissors and cut off your thread. I'm going to immediately put another knot in that thread, because I'm going to need it again. Okay, so fluff out your ending so that it looks good. You know, so you can see what you've got. Okay, now I don't want, obviously this is going to have to be cut off. I don't want the raw ends showing. So I'm going to go, this is where I've got it slip stitched together. I'm going to go back in and I'm going to cut it at an angle, because I got to get rid of all this extra yarn. Be sure not to cut the loop where you've got it stitched, because you want to keep that binding there intact. Oops. So you can discard that. Now, most people say just let it hang like that. And I don't like to do that, because lots of times you're going to see the raw ends. I can see the raw ends in here. So then what I do is I go back to where I had cut it. There. Those raw ends. And I take that edging of the yarn and I take it and pick up the one loop above it, the row above it, and using a yarn that's going to blend in, I'm going to take it right down to where I cut it, and I'm going to whip stitch that, the end of that row where I've cut it, to the row before. And doing this is going to help to keep from those raw edges from showing. You don't have to do a lot, just enough to secure it. And I'm going to go to the back side and I'm just going to tie it off. So make another stitch, slip the needle through, make the knot, make one more stitch, slip the needle through, make the knot. And cut off your thread. And that way, those loose ends aren't hanging. And you don't see all those raw edges. I don't like that, having the raw edges hanging below. Now, we're going to go back to the beginning of the scarf. We're going to do the same thing. Find the raw edges. There they are. Go to the end of the yarn where the raw edges are and stitch them to the row above or the row next to them so that they don't show either, because otherwise you're going to have raw ends of yarn hanging down, and I think that's ugly. So just whip stitch that together. I'm trying to get this end of the thread hidden by whipping it down. And then do another stitch and make a knot. Do another stitch and make a knot. And then cut off your thread. And I'm going to trim it so it's close to the yarn. And that way, if you hang your scarf, you don't have all those raw edges showing. Now, if you want to, you can go back and trim a little bit, just to make sure. So find the raw edges. There they are. And just do a little trimming. Just make sure you don't trim them into where they're going to cut through there. Those should be okay. They should stay. Now, if they don't stay, just take it, pick it up, take the edge, and then again, whip stitch it back in here. So, and that way you've ended your scarf. So I don't like the way that's hanging, so I'm going to make one more tack. I'm going to tack it together one more place right there, and then I'll be all done. Stop.